Welcome to the D1 Diary. I'm Madison Donley.
And I'm Skylar Shellmeyer.
This podcast is to give current and former athletes at the collegiate or professional level the light to share their individual and personal stories about life during athletics and everything behind the scenes.
Although the landscape of college athletics is ever changing, we want to give these athletes the opportunity to discuss the real thoughts and effects of what happens inside the minds of collegiate athletes. All right, for our first episode of this podcast, I am going to be interviewing Madison just to get a better understanding of how she got into soccer, the impact the game has had on her and where she is now in life. My first question for you is, when did you start playing soccer and how did you get involved?
Yeah, so I started playing at 5 years old. I did not want to go at all. I wanted to ride horses, but my dad's an ER physician, so he's seen too many accidents. So the horses were vetoed by my parents, and a bunch of kids, I guess in my kindergarten class, were going to join the soccer team. So my parents kind of threw me on the field. They had no idea if I was going to be athletic or not. And I feel like I just kind of hit the ground running and ran circles around a bunch of the kids. You know, at that age, you have kids that are sitting on the ground picking grass, and then you have kids that kind of pay more attention.
Yeah, and we were actually trying.
And I was the kid that was racking up multiple goals a game and just immediately kind of fell in love with it.
Yeah, and how old were you again?
5.
Okay.
There was one point where we had the rival coach from another team approach my parents and was like, just so you know, you need to get this kid into private training. You have the best 5-year-old soccer player in West Michigan. He's like, I've been coaching for a long time. This is pure talent. You can't teach this. Get this kid on a travel team.
That is actually wild. And it's crazy to see how young you were. And people are already seeing your talent from a distance, you know?
Yeah, it is interesting. I was super fast. So my speed at a young age was probably my biggest asset because at 5, you can carry a ball well, but obviously you don't have your touch perfected.
Yeah, but if you can sprint, it's going to take you away.
But if you can run past girls, that's how you are good at a young age. I was an attacking player for the majority of being a soccer player. I started off with scoring a ton of goals, so naturally I was thrown in an attacking position. But at a super young age, 5 through 9, I would rack up so many goals when we were playing other local teams that they would either bench me or at times put me as a defender as a test to pull me back from scoring goals. I remember being 7.
Crazy.
And I had a coach that literally kept me out of an entire game until we were down 3-0. Put me on the field in the last 5 minutes and we won 4-3 because I just racked it up in about 5 minutes.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's so crazy because I feel like even at that age, I remember playing soccer at that age, and it was just everyone would just circle around the ball, and it was just what the hell is going on?
Yeah. And then there was just me that was eyes on the prize. I have the ball, it's going in the net. So that was
going down.
That was me as a kid. And then when I got a little older, on my first travel team, I feel like I had a situation where I had parent coaches, not my parents, but girls on the team that were parent coaches that obviously wanted their girls to succeed. And then at times would sometimes make me a defender so their girls could score goals.
I see.
And I was like, screw this. I'm a goal scorer. And I would take the ball from being an outside back. And at this point, we were 8v8 because you don't go 11v11 until you're about 11, 12 years old. And I would take it the whole length of the 8v8 field and I would score.
Shut up.
I was kind of like, I will score no matter what.
Having were your parents ever your coach or
no? So my parents have no connection to soccer whatsoever. My mom played some field hockey in high school, not competitively. My speed, I think I do get from my dad. He did track in high school and I think did pretty well. Didn't play collegiately. Was just focused on getting into med school and I don't think was fast enough to even play collegiately, but did pretty well at 800.
Cool. So kind of like not random, but it's pretty freaking cool that you got to where you were.
Yeah, I mean, they learned about the game along with me.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Recruiting process and any of the extra training I did was all new information to them to get me where I am today.
I think that's actually a great segue, so thank you for doing that. But I want to ask you, what age did you get recruited, and what was that process like for you?
Yeah, so I got recruited starting at 15. Again, this was before the NCAA changed their rules. I feel like my journey to getting recruited was so crazy. So at about 12, I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was on a local Grand Rapids, Michigan team, and we were killing it. A bunch of those girls went D1, went Big Ten, but there was another team in Detroit that was the number one youth team in the country for my age group. They were the only team that would beat us. And so my parents kind of thought to get me to the highest level. They had me try out for the number one team in the country, kind of just to see if I would make it.
And how far of a drive is that for you?
So it was a 2-hour drive to and from practice.
How often was practice?
3 times a week, and then games on the weekend.
Oh, God.
So basically what happened is I went for tryouts kind of just to see if I would make it. Basically, we had a juggling competition in the beginning of the tryout.
Explain juggling, because I'm like, juggling as in you're tossing that.
Kind of. So it's juggling with your feet. It's funny because it's not something you'll ever see in a game, but it basically teaches you how to get super comfortable with the ball and can kind of be an indicator of how good your touch is.
Oh.
And especially at a young age, like it's very important to get good at juggling because it translates into other areas of your game.
Is juggling when you see people just tap the ball off their foot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
So it's all about ball control, and it's really hard to get good at both feet or alternate. So we introed with a juggling competition. I got fantastic at juggling at a young age because my parents wanted me to be good at it because some coach had taught them, like, it's really valuable if your kid can juggle well. So they would kind of bribe me. They'd be like, if you hit 10, I'll give you $10.
Like 10 in a row? Yeah. Without any drops?
Yes.
That's cool. Wow, yeah. So you got bribed with money.
Yes.
That's I like that.
Although I think they never paid me. So it was just an in my head thing. So it'd be like, yeah, $10.
Oh, cool.
I know. And there was 10 if you hit 50, 10 if you hit 100. And by the time I was 12, I could do 500 plus.
Shut up. Without any drops?
Without any drops. So
500?
Yeah. So we introed at 12 years old at this tryout with a juggling competition. And I was the best one by far.
Well, yeah, you got 500 in a row.
Well, there are plenty of people that can get 500 if you practice it. And if you can juggle well, it doesn't mean you're going to be the best player on the field, but it is just skill set.
Yeah.
So anyways, we had that. And then immediately after, we had 1v1s. So, just a defender to a goal. And I did not lose a single 1v1. And I think after this point, it was about 20 minutes into the tryout, the head coach found the manager of the team and had the manager of the team tell my dad that I was automatically on the team. And I didn't know. I was still, but basically after that, after I learned I was on the team, my parents decided financially we wouldn't be able to make the drive work because it's going to be a lot of gas money going out there 4 or 5 times a week.
Totally.
And I was crushed.
You made the team, but you didn't go through with it.
So not that year. I was devastated. I wanted to be on the best team in the country. So that next winter, they kind of talked to the coach, and I came for a few practices during the winter to kind of see what that drive would look like for me and my family. The following year, my parents decided to make the jump, and they also homeschooled me because they didn't know.
Wait, how long were you homeschool? I did not know this.
You didn't know this?
No.
Yeah.
I thought you went to high school, though.
I did.
Okay.
So I was homeschooled for 2 years and held back.
Wait, so you're actually a year older, technically?
Well, okay, so my birthday is end of August, so it's
a weird time of year.
The cutoff of being the youngest in your grade or the oldest in your grade. And my parents decided to skip Young Fives because they didn't really know what that was. They didn't know if that was for slower kids or if everyone was putting their kids in it. Apparently in Michigan, the majority of people go kindergarten, Young Fives, first grade. My parents are from the East Coast, so they didn't know that. So I went kindergarten, first grade. I was the youngest in my grade, so that also meant 1 year less of club soccer.
Got it, yeah.
So I was gonna join this team and do this 2-hour to practice and back crazy commute. They didn't know how it was gonna affect my studies. So they decided, with obviously my blessing, to hold me back in 6th grade to get me in the right age group. Have another year of soccer. And that way I was also homeschooled. So that was kind of a trial year.
Okay, well,
missing out really on a year of school because I was repeating it to see how I could handle a drive in school or how that would impact me.
That's bizarre. So would your mom help you with that, or was it literally you being like, okay, today I have to learn how to add? Or I guess I'm repeating and learning how to add or multiply.
Definitely a combination. There's a homeschooled bookstore in Grand Rapids, and we picked out books for every subject for that year.
This is a total kind of switch of paths, but how does that get monitored by the state? Like,
it doesn't.
So you can literally not learn a damn thing.
Yeah. So when I say it was a little bit of both, it was I had my books, but obviously my mom is my teacher and was not regulating that super hard. So the reason I was homeschooled for 2 years versus longer, I was going to do 6th grade again, 7th grade, 8th grade, go back for high school. That was my original plan. I did 6th grade and 7th grade, and I feel like I got to the end of 7th grade, and I was talking to my friends, and they're learning these things in math that I had no clue how to do. And I feel like me as a 7th grader is kind of like freaking out. Am I going to be illiterate? Like, I'm going to be behind. I'm not going to...
Mom, what can I add? What is algebra?
So at the time, it was awesome. I watched Animal Planet. I did extra soccer training, and it was super fun. I could go to practice and, just focus on soccer, really, for those 2 years. But after that, I was like, I need to go back to public school.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to full time.
Yeah, that's crazy that you had that awareness at that age because you're, 7th grade at this point?
Yeah.
I think a lot of 7th graders now are like, hell no. Like,
that's
I don't want to go to school, like homeschool my
I've
ass.
never thought about that, but yeah, I was terrified of being behind.
Yeah.
So then I ended up going back for 8th grade, but I also switched schools because I didn't want to go back to my original school being a year held back.
Yeah, that would have been really awkward.
Yeah, so I transferred to another school in our district that I already had friends from my local club soccer team before I moved to Detroit. So I already knew people. So it was a pretty smooth transition.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Cool.
Yeah. But just to circle back to soccer and not my crazy education journey, basically U13, so under 13 to U17, I played for that Detroit team.
Mm-hmm.
And so literally when I went back to school, I would get out of school, drive 15 minutes home, in 15 minutes pack up my soccer stuff, and I would be on the road for 2 hours.
Would you drive yourself?
So no, my mom had to drive me because obviously I started at U13, so I couldn't drive yet.
I see.
But eventually we had a little carpool going. So I left the Grand Rapids team to do this insane drive across the state. And my club team did not understand. I got a lot of, I don't want to say hate.
Yeah, but they were like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, all the parents are kind of like, what the hell? Like, who does she think she is? I was arguably, I don't want to come off conceited, but the best player on the team for that local team. So me leaving was definitely a disruption to them.
Yeah, and I bet that could cause you some flack socially.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had
envy of crazy parents.
Some of my, pretty much all my best friends at the time were on that local club team as well. So I was leaving all my friends. I was going to drive 4 hours a day, a couple times a week, just
That's bizarre.
Play the same game. It was pretty bizarre at the time. But I did this, and then I actually had 2 other families follow suit.
Mm-hmm.
So I had another girl my age, a girl older than me, and then her brother, and then at one point, a couple other older guys.
Oh, wow.
ended up transferring to this Detroit team, and there was a little carpool going.
So would you all just pile in a freaking minivan?
Yeah.
All right, y'all, let's go.
Those days were fun. So we would all pile into a car. And also when we had the carpool going, we had practice at different times sometimes because it was girls and guys. So it ended up being back-to-back practices. So literally we would get out of school, go drive to Detroit, and someone would be practicing, and then you have to stick around for the other person practices and still drive.
So would you like bring your homework and like just do your homework while you're waiting for like the guys?
Bring our homework, but literally none of us did it. We were so exhausted, one, from travel, because just being in a car makes you like so tired.
Yeah.
It's after school, and you're just tired from school, to be honest. And then after practice, the last thing you want to do after practice and being in a car at 10 p.m. is do your homework.
No.
So I feel like we all got stuck in the situation where we would get home at 12:30 a.m. and none of us would really do our homework, and we'd be scrambling to do it the next morning. At least for me, I literally would get back at 12:30 a.m. And I remember this. And if I had a test the next day, I would set my alarm for 4 a.m. and I would study right before school.
That would stress me out.
Oh, yeah. I got so tired because obviously that's not healthy. Getting home at 12:30, getting up at 4 or 5 a.m. to do homework, that's no sleep. I got so strung out between that and like really hard practices that I probably missed a day of school almost every week just to sleep. People at high school kind of made fun of me for. They're like, wow, you're actually at school today, Madison. Or they would be like, how many absences do you have this semester? Everyone knew I was doing this crazy club soccer thing and that I was really good, and I committed to college at 15, which was like unheard of.
Yeah. So you said you committed at 15.
Yeah, so verbal.
Was that verbal commitment to Northwestern, or what was your path? Did you have other offers? When did you first get approached? Kind of walk me through that space.
I guess it was talked about at like 13, 14, like, oh, you need to kind of figure out where you want to go to school.
It starts early.
It starts really early.
Now it's changed.
God. Yeah,
thank God.
It's really good. It's changed. Because I was a 15-year-old calling college coaches on in high school.
Yeah.
Girls were like,
and you're like, as a 15-year-old, you have no idea what you want in life.
No.
What I wanted as a 15-year-old, it has definitely changed.
Genuinely, during my recruitment process, I remember one of the schools I got recruited by was Tennessee. Orange is my least favorite color. So I told my parents I'm not going there.
Are you joking?
I wish I was joking. No, and I literally would be like, no, this college, like the buildings look old. Like, I want to go there.
No, okay. Yeah, you have such a good point. Like, even when I came to Northwestern, I was like, purple? Really?
Yeah.
Purple?
Yeah.
That's lame. Purple's lame.
You know, I actually thought purple was kind of cool, but
see, now I'm like, I love purple. My freaking ornaments right here are purple.
Yeah, but no, genuinely, that's why being recruited at 15 is not good. The other thing is they took you so seriously because the way college coaches approached you was, this is a business contract. I don't care that you're 15 years old. You need to be able to hold a serious conversation and be professional about this.
Wow.
Or we're not going to give you a $250,000 scholarship.
Do you
think they treated them like interviews?
Do you think it was like that everywhere you were getting recruited from?
I do think it was.
So that's like a soccer. Do you think it's like that's a soccer specific thing? Is like that seriousness?
Maybe. I know football, I think.
Yeah.
They can be sent multiple offers and then pick and choose. The way soccer was it was all under the table, but very rarely would a school actually give you a physical offer unless they knew that was your number one choice. And
I see.
You had multiple conversations. You had visited the school. Everything was done so under the table.
Yeah.
To get in communication with these schools, what would happen is you would be at these tournaments, and then there'd be college scouts, and the college scouts would contact your coach and be like, hey, I'm interested in Madison Donley, number 4. Here's my email and phone number.
Have her call me.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember this. Like, you had to call them.
Yes, so that was a big thing because it was crossing a line, or technically, air quotes, illegal for a college coach to reach out to a player directly. So as a 15-year-old, you were the one that had to take initiative and call the coach yourself. I was a shy kid, honestly. That was so uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, it would be for anybody. Like,
being 15, like,
totally.
these 50-year-old men for the most part.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah, and it was super weird. And honestly, also because 15's so young, one, you don't know how that player is gonna pan out, like, technically. But 15 is such an interesting age for girls. Some people are fully developed, some people aren't. I remember having coaches asking me, like, how tall my dad is, asking me if I thought I was gonna be taller. I'm not even sure. I'm 5'7". But at this level, they want tall girls. They want big bodies on the field. And I remember one coach talking to me and then following up like 2 months later. And this coach...
Have you grown an inch yet?
Oh, did I tell you this story? I must have.
No.
No, he literally said something to me like that. He was like, it looks like you've grown 2 inches. This man has never come closer to me than 10 yards because he's just watching my games.
Yeah.
And I've never had a conversation with him off the field.
That is bizarre.
Yeah.
That is bizarre.
Super
That is, yeah.
15, like, you have image issues as a girl.
Yeah.
You're so impressionable and you're growing and your body's changing. It was so weird. And to hear that from a man the age of my dad or older.
Yeah.
It's just so strange.
Very uncomfortable.
Basically, my recruiting process, how that went about for me was I had a tournament during my U15 year in the spring, a showcase tournament. This particular tournament was in New Jersey and I like killed it. I just played pretty flawless weekend. And after that, I kid you not, I had 52 D1 schools reaching out to me.
52?
52. All over the place. California.
Shut up.
Big Ten. Texas. Like,
I have the chills right now. I did not know that. That's crazy.
And I was so delusional because you're 50.
Yeah, and you're like 52 calls.
Normal.
What?
I really did. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I will surf through the 52 schools. Obviously, I was very privileged to have 52 schools reach out to my coach and try to get in touch with me. My club team, the Detroit one, we were called the Michigan Hawks. Just had a lot of hype in the soccer world, and we were the #1 youth team for multiple years. 3 years in a row, we made it to the national championship, and one of those years, we actually won it. So when it came to our games, I feel like we had the majority of the scouts. I think what really set me apart was I was ambidextrous with my feet. So there's a stereotype, I feel like, across all soccer players and probably a lot of other sports, that you are best with your dominant foot, your dominant hand. So I caught on to that theme as a kid, and I actually practiced my left foot probably twice as much as my right. And so growing up on these travel teams, I was almost always put on the left side of the field, either as a left forward or a left outside midfielder, sometimes a left defender, but it was because I could use both feet. I could cross with both feet, I could shoot with both feet, and that really set me apart from other girls, and I was super versatile. So that was an asset on my club team and would have been an asset to any team I committed to for college. And there are plenty of great college soccer players, even at that level, that when it comes down to shooting with their left foot, they're just not confident and they take an extra touch and they miss out on an opportunity. So having that left foot was huge. A lot of times on these phone calls with college coaches, they would ask me almost in a rhetorical way. They would be like, "You're left-footed, right? That was a crazy left cross." And I would be like, "Actually, no, I am right-footed." And they would be like, "Really? Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm sure I'm right-footed, but I do use my left as much, if not more, than my right foot during the game."
Oh, wow. It's kind of almost like you were ambidextrous. Like, and honestly, I think that's such a valuable skill at that age, just because so many coaches want to see you use both feet or both hands. And I think that's super, super awesome that you were able to do that and you trained your body in such a way to be able to do that. But I wanted to circle back to, the end of your recruiting process and what you ended up choosing and how you ended up making that decision.
And just circling back to my decision, I know I wanted a high academic school. So that was the first thing on my mind when choosing a school. I wanted a competitive soccer school as well, but when it came down to making a decision, I wanted a school that I knew on academics alone, it would have been pretty difficult for me to get in. Not because I didn't do well in high school, my grades were really good, but I just wanted to leverage my athletic ability to solidify a spot in a top university.
That makes sense. I feel like a lot of female athletes, they go that route as well. At the end of the day, kind of what you have to fall back on, unfortunately. But
Yeah, so what I was looking at was top 3 was Duke, second was Georgetown, and third actually was Northwestern.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
After that, Maryland, I really liked the coach at the time. I went and did a visit. He was awesome. So they actually ended up being one of my top choices as well.
Oh, wow. So did you take all 5 of your official visits?
No.
Oh.
So Duke, I ended up going to a college ID camp. So that's another way to get recruited is to go for the weekend to the college ID camp. But it's kind of harder to get recruited that way because at least for the Duke camp, there's over 400 girls there. So 400 plus girls there. After the weekend, the coach comes up to one player that stood out. That player was me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so I was over the moon. Duke had,
for
some reason, been a dream school of mine. I can't remember why. Probably the color. I like blue. But I thought the campus was beautiful, and I knew they were a top ACC school. I was like, this just seems very much up my alley.
Yeah.
And the coach came up to me after the weekend, and I was like, this is my school. This is where I'm meant to be. He was like, tell me what tournaments you're going to in the next few months. I'll be there. And I told him, and one of the tournaments, he's like, oh, I wasn't planning on going to scout that tournament, but I'm going to go just to see you. It's totally.
Yeah, and you're like, oh my God, he wants me.
Yes, exactly.
Classic game of cat and mouse.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, really.
Let's go play some of these tournaments. I don't see him at my games like he promised. Kind of call him up.
And I bet that definitely it can impact your performance because you're not really focused on what you should be doing, right? You're probably like, oh my God, you're looking around where is he?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, wait, it's someone else here. Yeah.
And so I call him up and I was like, hey, just checking in. Are you planning on going to this tournament or something to watch me play? And he decided to drop the bomb on me that he had just committed a U.S. national team player.
Oh, wow.
And was kind of out of money. And he was like, so if I was adding you to the class, you'd be the 6th commit for your year. I don't know how much money I can give you.
I see. That's a bummer. Do you feel like that was a matter of, I guess, how did you take that? Were you like, oh, I'm not good enough? Or do you think the timing thing? Oh, okay.
I was absolutely.
You internalized that and you're like, I'm not good enough.
I kind of thought, so I also did Olympic development programs as a kid.
Okay.
And I never made it past regionals. I never got a call up to the U.S. national team. Some of my teammates did. And so I thought being on Duke's team and being in a college spotlight might have been my last chance to get myself to a U.S. national camp. My other option, Georgetown, same thing. Went to a college ID camp. Didn't really get the same looks from the coaches. Honestly, they were focusing on the older girls. So they weren't really looking at my age. And then coach came to one of my games for the first half. And nothing really exciting happened. Second half, I got a game-winning assist. And then I call him to check in. And he was like, well, did you do anything? And keep in mind, I had been getting so much flattery from all these other coaches because they're trying to recruit you. Even if they're lying, they're trying to make you feel special.
Totally.
We want you, all this stuff. This coach was super blunt. He was like, well, what did you do during the game? And I was like, well, I got the game-winning assist. And he was like, oh, I must have left before then. So just the bad vibes.
Yeah.
You want to go somewhere you're wanted as well.
Totally.
So that kind of knocked Georgetown out of the running for me. Last one was Northwestern. So I got recruited through games, not that showcase, but some more local games because obviously I was playing in Michigan, Northwestern's Illinois, so they
very close, yeah.
Local club game that I did very well in. I ended up going to Northwestern just because love the city of Chicago.
Yep.
Love the campus.
So Were your coaches at all in the impact of your decision? Like, do you like
I like
coaches?
the coaches. I don't think originally I liked them as much as the University of Maryland coach, because he was just obsessed with me. He was a younger guy, seemed more like my personality. He ended up getting fired 6 months after I committed.
For what?
I don't think anything particular. The
Okay.
program just wasn't doing well.
I see.
So I was like, thank goodness I chose Northwestern, because if I chose it just for that coach, I probably would have been back in the running to verbally commit somewhere else.
So looking back at it now, you're very happy with your decision, you'd say?
Yes, and so
Okay. Well, let me ask this first. If you could sum up your college experience at Northwestern in 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
I don't know if I can do 3 words. I learned so much about myself not as a soccer player,
Okay.
which I thought I was going into college to develop as a soccer player. And I think literally the opposite happened, where I just developed as a person.
Okay. So reflecting on that, are you angry? Are you happy? Are you know what, it worked out. I'm very content with life. Are you like, did I make the right decision?
I think I will never regret going to Northwestern, because literally I met all my best friends.
Yeah.
I loved school there. I loved all of my classes. I loved my professors. I loved my major. I was so passionate about journalism. And I think when things were going horribly for soccer, my parents would be like, well, Madison, would you rather be the girl that plays 90 minutes but doesn't have any friends on the team and doesn't really like school, doesn't get invited to the parties or all the little social things, or would you rather be in your position where you're not playing 90 minutes, sometimes you don't even get on the field, but you have met your best friends in school. You live with your best friend, you do all these other things. Literally my freshman year, I got picked to go to the Middle East on an all-expense paid-for trip, and that was like one of the best times of my life.
That's so valuable that you kind of learn that at a young age. It's like life does not revolve around soccer, because it ends at some point. Sport ends. I bet it was tough to learn that, but
up until college, my life was soccer. I missed homecomings. I missed going to football games. I didn't hang out with the kids from my school on the weekend because I was at practice in Detroit or games around the country. There was a whole component of my youth that I definitely sacrificed for the game of soccer. And then I got to college and I was like, this is so cool, because soccer and socializing and school are all in the same place. I don't have to miss out anymore.
Yeah, they've never existed all at once. I want to segue. I want to use this time because you mentioned the Middle East trip. And so Madison and I were roommates pretty much our entire time in college. We met freshman year. We can dive into that way later, but we got paired up as roommates, and I remember Madison going to this Middle East trip, Qatar, right?
Yep.
I want you to explain what happened after this, because I feel like this story really changed the trajectory of your college career, almost like soccer-wise. I'm going to let you lead this, but yeah, you tell this story.
Yeah, so basically, I came back from this trip literally on the plane. I fell asleep because it was like a 15-hour flight home. I woke up with some throbbing pain kind of like near my hip, and I was like, oh, it's just because I've been sitting in the same spot for like 8 hours. Kind of tried to adjust, didn't really get better. Had practice like the following day after I landed, and we do sprints in the beginning of practice, warm-up sprints, and my leg just felt funny, and technically I was limping, and I couldn't understand. It was just like,
this was around spring break, right?
Yeah, this is right after spring break.
Okay, yeah.
Like,
so this is after your first collegiate career, or not career, first collegiate season.
Yeah.
Now you're in off season. You just came back from spring break. Okay, boom, this is happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think before spring break, we played the national women's Mexican team, actually a scrimmage on the lake field, which was super cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
And then we went to spring break, came back, been off for a week, didn't work out, came back with this weird throbbing pain, and all of a sudden I can't run properly. My coach is like, Madison, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't know. But he pulls me out of practice. He's like, okay, well, like, you're not practicing. You're limping. Let's check it out. They don't really know what's wrong. I think they put me back into practice, but it wasn't getting better.
How many weeks was this after the pain, or days after the pain started?
I was back in practice for about 3 weeks before it got unbearable.
Oh, wow. Was this the time, at this point, was it where you were like, you can't walk?
So it got there. So basically, I was having a lot of trouble on the field, basically just running, and I got an MRI of my hip, and the hip showed a ton of inflammation. And there was a recommendation to get a pelvis MRI because they could see inflammation coming from the pelvis, but it was a hip MRI, so they couldn't see it completely. My team doctor at the time said it was probably just overuse. They see this all the time in football players. They're not going to do the pelvis MRI. Put me back on the field. It got to the point where there was one practice I couldn't even turn my body.
Yeah. There was one time where we were living together, or just middle of the week, and I come back and you have your mattress topper on the ground and your boyfriend is over, and I'm like, what is going on? And you were like, I can't get up on my bed. And your bed's it was not lofted at all. It was like slightly raised. Yeah.
Bed. So I got to the point where I was so weak that I couldn't even lift myself into bed. And you know this, but you ended up leaving the following day to travel and threw me a Cliff Bar.
He was like, feel better?
But I got to the point where I couldn't even sit up. So I was stranded on my dorm room floor. I counted because I was like dying for 19 hours. And my boyfriend at the time had to come and bring me water and food because I physically couldn't get off my dorm room floor.
Actually did not know it was for 19 hours.
It was 19 hours. And
you were just, did you go to the bathroom?
No, I was in so much pain, like I couldn't. I wasn't eating. I wasn't drinking. My dad's an ER physician. I said that at the beginning of the episode. Texted him. He knows I don't complain unless there's actually something wrong. So I texted him. I was like, you need to come get me. Something's wrong. They're missing something. I can't get off the floor. So he flies. He works in South Dakota and Michigan. He flies from South Dakota to Chicago, gets a rental car, drives to Northwestern, ends up coming to my dorm room. He sees me. He's like, Madison, we don't send people home from the ER that are in the condition you are in right now.
Yeah.
And he had to physically carry me out of my dorm.
That is insane.
Like,
insane.
So embarrassing too, like being a freshman in college.
Yeah.
Like, my dad is carrying me out of the dorm room because I cannot walk. So carries me into the car.
Yeah.
Drives like 80 miles per hour from Chicago to Michigan, and I'm admitted to the ER right away. They don't know what's wrong at first. They know the pelvis is broken and there's some bone missing from my pelvis, but they can't explain why. So I'm stuck in the hospital, hospitalized for about 3 or 4 days. Every day I'm getting worse. They don't know what's wrong with me. I'm a 19-year-old D1 athlete that all of a sudden by day 4 can't lift her head. Finally, they're like, we don't know what's wrong. Last resort is infectious disease. They caught like baby fever. So they're like, oh, like maybe it's an infection. So they test my blood. Comes back that I am fully septic. And I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
So a whole team of people were like rushing into my room. They're hooking me up to antibiotics. I don't know what's going on. They tell my parents that I'm septic. Both of them are doctors. Their faces are white as a ghost. And I remember being...
Yeah, people can like tank.
Oh, like many people can die from that.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, what's septic? And they had to explain to me that I basically had an infection now in my bloodstream that could go to any of my organs. And had I stayed at Northwestern, my organs would have shut down. And there's a chance I would have died on our dorm room floor. I
don't even know where we were at when I was traveling because we go like literally 4 days for a weekend. But yeah, I was talking to Madison and she was like, dude, you could have came back and I would have been dead on our floor.
And to back up, I remember I loved our trainer at the time, our athletic trainer. So not to shame her, she had no idea what was going on and this is super rare. But I remember texting her and I was like, can I go home? Before I texted my dad. She's like, home to Michigan? Because just like skipping a practice or missing a practice, going home unexpectedly is not a thing.
Yeah,
the contract, you don't just get to come and go as you please. Yeah. And I was like, yes, I need to go home. And she was like, oh my God, it was midterm week. She was like, can you just stay through your midterms? This is going to screw everything up if you go home.
And you're like, no, I need to go.
And I was like, no, I'm going home. And so I kind of like went against
their recommendation.
Yeah, so I completely went against their recommendations and just total norms. Got admitted to the ER and found out I was septic. So was in the hospital for a whole week before getting released. Was so weak when I was released that they put me on a walker. They put me in a walker. I couldn't walk at all. I had a PICC line in, which is basically an IV that's mobile.
I remember this.
And then I was home for 3 weeks.
So was school on pause at this point?
They wanted me to unenroll from the quarter.
Oh my.
When I was home, I was literally living on a mattress in my living room. I was too weak to even walk up the stairs. So getting to a bedroom in my house was not a possibility. And I could barely, with pain, get myself to the kitchen and back with my walker. So when it came to coming back to school, for safety reasons, they were very hesitant to let me come back. But I was so insistent that I did end up coming back on crutches and then came back with my PICC line and ended up finishing it out the last 2 weeks of school.
And it was just like mad hell for you. I felt just like getting all your shit together.
Oh, yeah. I showed up, had to take all my midterms.
Oh, my God.
Do all of the assignments I had missed while being in the hospital and at home. And then on top of that, the following week, take my final exams. I ended up getting a 3.9 that quarter.
Bro.
I don't know how. I think I was so pissed off.
Yeah.
Soccer was taken from me.
Yeah.
That I was like, you're not taking school too.
Yeah, what was the end result? What from?
The diagnosis was I was never going to run again because I had lost all the cartilage between my leg and pelvis bone. It was all eaten by the bacteria, the infection. There's not medicine where you can recreate cartilage.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah.
So they're like, yeah, sorry, kid. We don't know why this happened to you. Definitely not going to play soccer. Probably won't run again. If you're in so much pain from the missing cartilage, because technically I had severe arthritis at this point.
Yeah.
We can put a plate in, but then you're never going to run again for sure. Once the plate, my dad was like, that's not going to be an option.
That's not it, yeah.
Like, no, you were playing the Mexican national team 3 weeks ago. Like, what do you mean you're not going to run again? So we did some research, and the Mayo Clinic was doing some experimental arthritis surgeries. We flew to the Mayo Clinic to see if I was going to be a candidate. And I was. I actually found out on my 20th birthday that I was going to be able to have the surgery. So although it wasn't like 100% sure you're going to be okay, I was able to hang on to the hope that there was a chance that I was going to come out on the other side. It was a 50% success rate. Kind of nerve-wracking because it was so intricate. Like if they hit a wrong nerve, I could have lost the feeling in my legs forever. But my dad was kind of like, you're going to be limping at 30 years old. This is your best shot. He also was so positive the whole time. My dad, he kept telling me, like, you're going to beat this. They don't have enough of these injuries on record. You're young. They don't know how you're going to end up. And when I got better, he was like, to be honest, Madison, I would have bet my house and all of my assets that you were never going to run again. He just didn't want to be the one to break that news to me. He wanted me to figure out on my own and come to my own conclusion that I had tried my best, but it wasn't going to be possible for me to return to soccer again, although we went through with the surgeries just to give me that slim possibility. It was a really complicated procedure, so there was a particular surgeon at the Mayo Clinic that was trained and able to perform both surgeries because there's actually 2 surgeries. And at the time, he actually had leukemia and was not supposed to be operating. But he performed the surgeries on me because I was only 19 and it was the second worst sacral joint infection they had documented on record. And he wanted to give me a better life. So he actually came in with leukemia to operate. And this was right before COVID. So if this had been a few months later, I don't know if he would have taken that chance, but I'm so thankful that he did.
That is so remarkable that your doctor that did your surgery, and it's not a basic surgery, this is a trial surgery, that he had leukemia. He literally had cancer and he chose to operate on you. Like, that is so remarkable, so insane. But yeah, thank God that he did take that chance and that he did operate on you. Otherwise,
things could have turned out differently.
So how long do you think it took you to get back to the game?
Overall, this whole process to get back to the game took 17 months.
And mind you, Madison's still attempting to go out. The spring semester at Northwestern is peak Northwestern time. It's so much fun. And Madison, was it Dillo that you still had was it the pick line? Or was some party big?
There were plenty of instances where I was still on crutches and still would go out, or I had the pick line on my arm and there was a dance or a formal.
That's what it was.
I would wear sleeve dresses to cover it, just try to feel like a.
If we were still in the area, you would be like, I gotta go, guys. I gotta go do my steroid.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta leave and do my antibiotic shot.
Yeah, there were times I would have to leave at midnight, go back to our dorm room, shoot myself up with antibiotics, and then head back to the party. But yeah, so that was the thing. I had a weekly nurse that would come to my dorm room and redo my dressing. The whole thing was fucking absurd. It was rough. The week I got cleared to run officially, everyone got sent home from COVID. So I had to do all the rehab on my own. No athletic trainer, no fancy equipment. Just kind of seeing if I'm in pain.
Wow. I'm speechless. Seriously, it's so impactful, especially hearing your recruiting story and going from probably one of the best players in the country and then boom, this very traumatic injury happened to you. And then I feel like the end of the story is you overcame, you did play again. You beat the odds.
Yeah, it was so insane. My dad had to meet with my head coach and be like, listen, there's a very good chance she's never going to put cleats on again. And another reason I chose Northwestern, not because I thought I was going to have a traumatic injury, but a lot of people don't know this, different leagues have different scholarship protection rules. So the Big Ten is one of the only leagues, once you sign those papers, your scholarship is intact for all 4 years, regardless of...
It's not a year-by-year basis. Yeah, you pen to paper, it's 4 years locked in.
The ACC, especially before they changed rules, were recruiting 10 to 12, 15-year-olds, knowing some of them wouldn't live up to their potential, and then come end of freshman year would nix a bunch of their scholarships, and then they would have to go in the transfer portal because all of a sudden they can't pay for school.
Mm-hmm.
So
very scary, but kind of a blessing in disguise that this all happened the way it did. So you got on the field again eventually, right?
I did get on the field again. I feel like because the injury was 17 months and there was COVID, and then our season was canceled to COVID, but we were still on campus practicing, but there was no season. I didn't actually get to play that many games during my career.
Yeah.
So by the time I was playing again, my coach had kind of written me off. Now we have this girl that has not a lot of experience and is basically end of her junior year, beginning of her senior year, doesn't have a lot of minutes on the field. It kind of just tossed me to the side.
Yeah.
Even though we did a lot of data in practice, and I remember junior season, we do practice stats, number of goals, number of assists, number of one-on-ones, crosses, whatever. I was killing it in the stat. We wore heart rate monitors, and there are several practices where I was the one that could sustain my heart rate at its peak heart rate for the longest amount of time, which is a huge indicator of fitness. I don't want to say I was the most fit on my team because there's a lot of variability with that. But post-injury, I reached a point where I was at least the top of the team in terms of fitness. The last thing I wanted to do was come back as this washed-up, injured player.
Totally.
So in addition to practice and lifts every single day, I was running an additional 3 miles.
Yeah, this girl was always like, I'm going to get hurt now. I'm like, I'm not. Goodbye.
So doing the math, I was running, at least 80 extra miles per month than all of my teammates.
And you came back from this bizarre injury and experimental surgery that played in your favor.
Yes.
You're amazing. Seriously, that's so...
It pays out for me. I mean, despite, coming back to practices and clawing my way up on the stats, having a positive attitude the whole time I was injured, showing up to every game, cleaning up cones, being that sideline cheerleader. I did it all.
Yeah.
And didn't work out for me. So kind of graduated on a sour note.
Yeah.
Didn't get my soccer I wanted.
I wanted to ask you that. How did all of this, your all 4 years at Northwestern, how did that impact your relationship with soccer?
I think it was super disappointing, and because I was working super hard and I didn't get the minutes I felt like I deserved, it was extremely disheartening, and I felt like I totally got burnt out, kind of started to resent the sport, definitely resent the coaches, especially all the time and commitment I put in to not get anything out of it. But I didn't want my whole story or whole perseverance of this injury to kind of go to waste, so I said I wanted to run a marathon by the time I was 25. And I just finished that marathon.
Yes, you did.
3 weeks ago, and I qualified for Boston.
That by how many seconds?
72.
Which is amazing. You killed it.
Yeah, so that was super sick. I'll be running it this April, which is super.
This April?
Yep.
I thought you were doing it next year.
No, so it's gonna be this April.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wait, so sorry. If you qualify in the same year, you have to do it, or can you defer it?
So technically, I should be running it next year, but because I work for Adidas, they got me a comp bid.
Shut up.
So I am able to run it this year. So shout out Adidas.
Oh, bro. So you're back in training mode.
Oh, I will be back in training mode in about 2 weeks. For the next
all over again
4 months.
Oh,
yep, all over again.
Wow.
Which I'm excited because I feel like I'm only gonna have a month between running this marathon and starting training again.
Yeah.
There's a good chance I will PR, hopefully.
Oh my god, okay.
And I already feel like I'm in insane running shape right now.
Yeah, no, you're a beast. You're a beast. Yeah.
Officially.
Bro.
So I'm pumped.
You're insane. I just feel like it didn't work out in college. Well, a lot of ups and downs, but I feel like through your perseverance and commitment to what you were doing, it freaking worked out.
Yeah, and also because soccer wasn't going well for me,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I really threw myself into journalism, into my friends, into things that after our season ended, people really struggled with because they didn't know how to be a person without the sport. I already mastered that.
Yeah.
I already knew who I was without soccer because I wasn't being given that soccer opportunity that I expected originally.
Yeah, so I guess that leads me to my next question is, now that soccer is officially over, you're done and graduated, it's been about, a year and a half?
Year and a half.
Have there been any mental challenges with knowing that you're done playing, or did you feel like you kind of crossed that bridge earlier?
I mean, there are people I grew up playing with or played soccer with at Northwestern that are now playing overseas pro or for the Chicago Red Stars. You know, they continued that soccer pro journey that I once thought I was totally gonna do and be a part of that lifestyle. But I think between the fact that I was so burnt out and kind of started not to love the sport anymore, I have no hard feelings about that.
Okay.
Not being how I ended up. I'm still in Chicago in the city with all my friends and met my new boyfriend here. I just feel like everything happens for a reason.
Totally.
So
it worked out.
And now I have new goals post-soccer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Run every world major marathon.
And you're almost there.
Well, I'm about to run.
There's 5, right?
There's 6.
There's 6.
Maybe 7 if they add Sydney, Australia.
Oh my gosh.
And I love to travel, and 3 are international, so I feel like that's just a great gig for me to do.
So after Boston, what is next?
So
what's the next big one?
Yeah, so Boston is the biggest. It's the most historic one out of the 6, and the only one you have to qualify for time-wise. All the other ones you can get into, but they're all lottery, and the lottery's hard. I've applied to Chicago the past 2 years, haven't gotten either time. So it's just a matter of what lotteries you end up getting.
Yeah.
So it could take me a couple years to finish. Sometimes it takes people decades to be able to run all 6.
That's so cool, though. And honestly, I really envy you for that right now. I mean, we've touched on this a lot, but I'm one of those people who are struggling. I'm like, my sport's over. What the fuck? I have no idea what's going on. And that's super awesome and something I'm reaching for. Okay, what are my goals now?
Right.
Now that I don't have sport.
I think it's hard too because you could still love your job, but it's probably not.
It's not the same, yeah.
No, so you really have to find whatever works for you. Fall in love with yoga or fall in love with running.
Yeah.
Or fall in love with CrossFit, something to keep you going if you're used to working out every day and want to continue that.
Yeah, totally. Well, it was amazing hearing your story.
Thank you.
If you have any questions for Madison, please comment them. Email us, DM us, reach out to us, and we look forward to next week. But thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate all of you. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of the socials, and just follow along with our story. Okay. Bye.